When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Warning, this podcast contains explicit language and spoilers. This is Behind the Iron Throne, your unofficial Game of Thrones cast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Behind the Iron Throne. I am not Chris, the host. I am Jonathan, but Chris is having some technical difficulties, so I'm taking over. We are recording Sunday, August 20th, 2017, and I forgot what this episode is called. Andrea, what's this episode called, please?
Beyond the Wall.
Beyond the Wall. And let me introduce our first host. He is the... Oh my God.
The man that rides the Millennium.
He's the rides the Millennium Falcon. He is the one, the only Millennium Yardley. What's up, Yardley?
Hey, I'm doing great. Look forward to talk about this penultimate episode.
It's great to hear from you, man. You're the best. And next we have the Tigerian, the fourth head of the Tigerian dragon. Okay, she is. I can't pronounce her name, so I'm not going to bother. She is Trin. What's up, Trin?
Hello. Dovahkiin.
Dovahkiin,
cool.
There you go.
We're so lost without Chris.
I know.
Okay, we're winging it, people.
Here. And finally, my favorite person in the whole world, outside of my mom, okay? She is the Mistress of Whispers and someone who I will now buy into everything she says because she is right, okay? She is the Mistress of Whispers, Andrea. What's up, Andrea?
Hey, everyone. That was the best intro we've ever had in history of intros.
I need more beer.
Guys, what?
John, you aced it, bro.
Thank you. I do. Guys, what an amazing episode, people. So much stuff's happened. Oh my God. I watched this earlier in the week. Oh my God.
Chris is chugging a beer right now.
I don't have show notes, so I'm winging it. So we start off with the Magnificent Seven. Bro. The Magnificent Seven is beyond the wall walking. Okay. Yarly, what do you think about this scene?
I think it's a cool scene, getting to see all of these heroes kind of heading to their destination. We've all been waiting for this moment to see how they're going to pull off this mission. And I thought that it was pretty cool, the banter between Gendry and Thoros of Myr. I thought that was pretty cool, as well as the interaction between Tormund and Sandor Clegane. That was a totally phenomenal thing that made me laugh quite a bit. And there's one consistent thing, a thread with the Hound throughout this episode is he's totally the Hound. He's an ass from start to finish, and it's glorious.
Trin, your thoughts?
I was reading on social media all week, like predictions and different things, and it said new drinking game. Every time Sandor Clegane says cunt, you have to take a drink. So he said it a lot in this episode. It was hilarious. And because exactly what Yardley said, that's Sandor. He's still the same guy. By far my favorite line, especially for this first scene, was Tormund when he was like, I want to make babies with her.
That was awesome. Andrea.
There's so much to say about this. Jon and Jorah, when Jon tried to give back Longclaw and Jorah said to him, keep it, my father gave it to you. Keep it, my father gave it to you. It'll serve you well and your children after you. And up until this very moment, Jon has been very clear that he didn't want children. So the look on his face, thinking, oh shit, I have to have heirs. And then there was that scene with Tormund and the Hound, and I love the part where he was like, I don't give a shit about wildlings. I don't fucking like gingers. And he goes, gingers are beautiful. And I was just like, you're so fucking cute, Tormund. And he was just so turned on by the Hound when the Hound was like, fuck off, basically. I was just like, this is perfect for them.
That's awesome. Next, we are in Winterfell. Arya reads the Raven to Sansa. Arya tells Sansa about the time Ned caught her shooting arrows. Yardley, what do you think about this scene?
I thought it was a great scene, and one of the things that we observed and we speculated about previously was whether or not that Arya was kind of aware of everything that's going on. I think one of the things that we learned in this episode was that Arya is actually buying into the poison pill that Littlefinger had planted, and this is just the beginning of some great scenes we see between the sisters. So I'm pretty sure later on we'll talk about more intense interaction between these characters.
Trin, your thoughts?
I'm still not buying it. I'm still not buying that all this is real. I said this weeks ago, or right when they got reunited, that actually no, I think I said weeks ago that Sansa is playing Littlefinger in a long game, and these two girls have gotten together, and I think they said something off screen. I really still believe it, even after this episode, that they are plotting something. And even these like weird interactions and fights, Littlefinger's around the corner watching. He's been doing it the whole season. So they're doing this all for show. I believe that 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. This is a long con. Andrea, your thoughts?
With Arya and Sansa.
Yes.
I'm trying to find a quote by one of our fans. I'm not sure if it's Karsha or if it was Renee earlier. They said, while Sansa and Arya were having that conversation, there was a dead bird in the background, and then Arya moved, and when she walked away, Sansa stood there, and that same dead bird was right there in the background. And I think everything with Game of Thrones is symbolic. So I mean, I definitely think that where they're having these conversations, it's way too public for it not to be overheard. And the fact that Sansa immediately went to Littlefinger after the fact and asked for his counsel when she was very clear that she didn't trust him just leads me to believe that they're working some angle. Where'd she get the raven? I don't know. I mean, come on. She knew he was lying to her.
Yeah, I'm buying this. Next, we are back in the north. Jon and Beric talk about Ned. You don't look like him. You must have taken after your mother. Yarly, what do you think about this scene?
You know, I thought it was really cool. One of my favorite quotes was basically when he was talking about death, and this is kind of applicable to this situation or in life when he says that death is the enemy. Death always wins, but pretty much nevertheless, we have to fight it. And that's true in life. You know, when death comes, people want to fight till the bitter end, even though that they know it's a fight that they can't win. And that kind of parallels the situation that our characters are in later in the episode, where they're basically overwhelmed. They accept their fate. And I think it was some pretty good foreshadowing things for the series going forward, that even when things are hopeless, you have to keep fighting till the bitter end.
Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah, in the after show, I think Dan and Dave explained, and we'll talk about Cold Hands or whatever, Benjamin later, but it was talking about fulfilling a purpose. And I think good storytelling and good writing, characters aren't there without some sort of purpose. And we know that Jon's purpose wasn't to die in the water. Like when he went down, you know, that's not the end for him. Something is more. And the same thing with Beric, when he's talking about death, he says to Jon, and I don't know if Yardley, you just said this, but he says to Jon, like, we are here for a purpose. We're not here to freeze on this island. We are here for something. So he didn't bring us, R'hllor or whoever didn't bring us all this far just to shit ourselves on an island.
Andrea, your thoughts?
My gosh, this was just so amazing. Like seeing Jon and Thoros together. I really actually did like this scene with Thoros and with Beric and Jon, because he did say, "You look like your mother." And for me, that's actually the very first time I think anyone's told Jon that he didn't resemble Ned, which was interesting to me because we had that callback last week as well with Gendry and him, where he was like, "You're shorter." So I thought that was interesting. We're following a theme here. And that whole entire fulfilling a purpose, I think that it was interesting, you know, having heard that, you know, Beric came back 6 times and he still didn't know what he was there for, but he knows that he's wanted to be alive. And I think it's good for Jon to have somebody else who can say to him, listen, we're serving a bigger purpose here, and the North didn't bring you back, you know? So I actually really enjoyed all of the banter throughout the very first half of the show, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah,
What did
I
Yeah,
love
I
all
was
this banter and stuff. It was amazing. I love it goes where the shield that guards the realm. I thought that was a wicked line by John. So that's awesome. Okay, we are Dragonstone. Danny anxious. Tyrion is in his feelings. Tyrion and Danny talk about the summit at the Dragon Pit. You're taking your family's side. Succession. You say you can't have children. Yarly, what do you think about this scene?
I thought it was a great scene. It actually covered a lot of things. It's interesting that Tyrion would mention a line of secession, and one point that they hammered home twice in this episode was Tyrion reminding Dany that she told him that she couldn't conceive, and later on in the episode, Dany expresses to Jon her inability to conceive. I mean, and I think that those 2 points in the episode, along with Tyrion asking about secession issues, it kind of leads me to believe that that's going to be very important later on in the series. I'm one of the people who personally thinks that Dany is not going to make it through this, and I think that this is kind of letting us know, or at least setting the tide for something to happen, but at the end of the day, someone will fill that vacuum. So I thought that those conversations were great.
Trin, your thoughts?
I think Danny's holding back. I think she's got something in mind that's bigger, because they were talking about the wheel and how Aegon was the one that created the wheel. And Danny keeps talking about break the wheel. And she's like, I'll take care of that. And we'll talk about succession once I get on the throne. Because I think deep down, Danny knows that everybody Westeros needs a leader. And when that leader makes the decision to break the wheel, then everybody will go along with it. But you can't break the wheel unless you're in the wheel, I guess. I don't know. She's gonna be breaking the wheel along the way, but she is gonna be as close to crowned as she could be as far as taking over the whole country. And that'll be next season. We'll see about that. But in this scene, you could totally see that Tyrion saw the love eyes in Dany when she was like, this guy, Jon Snow. Yeah. Oh, this guy. You just named 3 people that you love and Jon. So, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's but Dany and Jon seem to realize that they're falling in love with each other. That's awesome. Andrew, your thoughts?
Ironically, children actually came up a lot this episode. The sword with it'll serve your children after you. Daenerys, I can't have children. They'll be the only children I ever have. Tyrion, you said you think you can't have children. It makes you think that there is going to be strong emphasis on children. And I am of the belief that Daenerys will die in childbirth. And that really brings me to something else. And I'll get to that later on. But the emphasis on children in general in this episode was interesting. And I agree that Dario, Drogo, Jorah all do stupid things to prove how much they care or something like that. And this Jon Snow, you could tell she was visibly worried, and she wasn't so worried about Jorah or anybody like that. She had Jon Snow on the brain. And you can see that Tyrion is actually smitten with her. He's made some mistakes, and that's because he's not thinking clearly. And he realizes that, it is what it is with her, but you can see that he feels like he's not enough. And so when she says he's too little, Tyrion's like, and then she was like, that I think that you're brave. So he was just like, one more way to make me feel like I'm not enough. But I think that the talk of secession was absolutely necessary, because whether she can or she does or she doesn't have kids, who is going to replace her after she's gone? She is the last Targaryen. Her dragon's going to rule for her. She has to broach the situation, and the fact that she accused Tyrion of actually planning her death was a little bit much. I felt bad for him in that situation, because who's going to plan her death? Tyrion obviously doesn't want her to go anywhere, so she needs to start thinking seriously about that, and I think that she does later on in the episode. I think it's just misunderstood in conversation.
Yeah, great thoughts. Next, now we've seen some crazy shit on this show. Game of Thrones, okay? Dragons, dead horses, White Walkers, giants. We see a motherfucking dead polar bear. Okay, that's fucking crazy. Okay, and then all
Do
shit
polar
goes
bears
crazy.
have blue eyes?
Dead polar bears start attacking. The flaming swords come out. I still don't know how the flaming swords happen. That shit's crazy. And Thorsamir gets bitten. Okay, he gets attacked, and he says, "Funny old life." Yardley, your thoughts on this crazy scene?
I thought that it was a great scene, and one of the things that they emphasized, and it kind of parallels what happened a few episodes back with Theon and his issues of PTSD, is that we saw that the Hound is definitely not over his issues with PTSD. I mean, essentially, Hound pretty much left Thorsamir out to dry, and that was a crazy opportunity for the Hound to kind of show that he was shaking off his issues with PTSD. But one of the strengths of the show is a lot of people who were calling Theon a coward when his PTSD came back. And then we get to this episode and it happens to the Hound, is one of the ways that the show is kind of hammering home that, you know, calling someone crazy or a coward because they have those issues, PTSD, is a lot more than that. So that might be something that comes back into play, but I love that they're not backing off, that when you have these issues, they don't go away, and they're not making them go away to serve the story. So I have to pat them on the back for that.
Good. Good thoughts. I think personally for a Hound, I think his crowning achievement is him getting over that fire fear and saving the day. Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, they could have used Sam up there beyond the wall because Sam is the epitome of brave. You know, even when he's afraid, he does the right thing. So it did suck to see Sander freeze up like that, but that ice zombie or that ice bear zombie thing, that was insane. And that was like one of those moments that startled me because you saw the guy running and I thought the ice bear was behind him, but then he like came off to the side. And where did these extras come from? Because I counted like a certain amount of people and then they just had extra people and they keep coming up with like that one useless person who falls here or gets taken out by the bear or whatever. So I didn't see them come up there with that many people. I thought we had like the Super 7 or the Suicide Squad or whatever people are calling it these days.
I think it was 7 plus 4 extra because there was 2 guys carrying like a sled or something. So there was extras. I saw when they're going parts wall. Great thoughts. Man, what a special effects in the bear is crazy though. It's crazy. Andrea, your thoughts?
The whole scene was like nuts. The fact that they hit him with fire and that bitch was still like, fuck you, I'm staying. Right. I was like, I thought that he was supposed to sizzle out and die like right away. Like, I mean, I know they wiggle around a little bit, but he was full out getting ready to eat Thoros. But they did have a lot of extras. I noticed that too, Trent. And also really good point, Yardley, about the post-traumatic stress. That was a really good parallel. And it did, I mean, I could see why he was afraid of fire. And I even said so to the kids as we were watching. But I didn't really compare it to Theon, and that's a really good parallel. That's fantastic. And then John, just to answer your question really fast, I do believe that Thoros uses wildfire to ignite his sword, where Beric uses his own blood. I don't know if they follow through with that on the show, but when he slices it through his hand, it's basically him getting his own blood, using his own blood to ignite the sword. But yeah, overall, fucking Thoros is hilarious. It's a funny old life.
Yeah, but he was wearing gloves still. But anyways, we go back to Winterfell. Sansa takes Littlefinger's counsel. Long con and play. Yardley, your thoughts?
Oh, I thought it was a cool scene. It kind of definitely tied into all of the other threads that are connected with this storyline. So I thought that it was interesting. I mean, Littlefinger kind of thinks that he's on a roll, and it'll be cool to see how it plays out. I mean, you know, I think that Littlefinger's arc has pretty much just gotten to a point where I'm ready for it to be over, and I'm ready for the focus to be more on the greater war.
Good point. Trin, your thoughts?
Sansa gets the Westeros Golden Globe. Seriously, this scene, she was acting so fantastic towards Littlefinger because I just know she's ahead of him in this game. And she learned from the best as far as manipulation. She learned from him and Cersei. And they're seemingly on top, but they don't. Sansa is a force to be dealt with for sure.
Good point. Andrea, your thoughts?
Yeah, again, I think that this is all a part of the long con too. The fact that she went in the room and specifically closed the doors this time for a conversation was interesting to me, and that she doesn't trust him at all, so she wouldn't take his counsel in anything. I also noticed that when he mentioned that that Brienne was honor bound to intervene between one or the other, Sansa made the decision that she made because she saw Arya against Brienne out there in the yard. You know what I mean? And she didn't want to put her sister in a situation like that, nor Brienne. So Sansa is thinking ahead, and Littlefinger's just making her next move easier, honestly.
Good point. Good point. We go back north again. Thoros and Jorah, they're talking. Two old guys talking about the past. The Ironborn thought you were some kind of god. I thought you were the bravest I've ever seen. Jorah, just the drunkiest. Yarly, your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I thought that was actually great. I mean, Thoros is one of those guys who is about as real as it gets. You know, someone gives him accolades because he was brave, and he was essentially saying that it was this sweet rum, and I didn't even remember the battle, and I thought that was cool. And for a minute there, you know, I kind of felt like, you know, Thoros is probably the toughest SOB out there. For him to still be trudging along and to basically suck it up, put some spit on it, and keep on moving, he is definitely the epitome of that in this episode.
Good point. Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Thoros might have known that his time was coming to an end, and he didn't want to be the anchor that stopped this whole thing from moving forward. So he did suck it up, like Yardley said, and spit on it and kept going. But I think he knew his time was coming to an end, because I think that all the red priests and priestesses kind of know, like Melisandre knows that she's supposed to die in Westeros, and I just think they kind of they see those things or they know ahead of time, and he just did what needed to be done, honor and duty.
Good point. Trin, Andrew, your thoughts?
Gosh, where were we at? We were talking about Thoros.
Yes, and Jorah talking.
Actually, that's interesting that he actually admired him and he thought that Thoros was the bravest man, but then Thoros was just like, I'm the drunkest. And so he just basically gets wasted to go into anything, and he's fearless at this point. But it doesn't stop him from being, you know, whoever he is. I'm really sad about Thoros. And he just reminds me of the Grinch whenever he smiles. It's like perfect.
Yes, he does.
That was yeah.
Hey everybody, make sure let's also kind of make sure that we speak on the cheat code that we have with the ambush that these guys had with the White Walker. We were mentioning. Okay, I didn't want to step on your toes, John, but I just wanted to make sure that we.
I'm new to this. Sorry.
Tormund
no he sees the whites and lays a trap. Jon kills the general, and the others fall except for one. Plot hole, people. Come on. Army of whites are chasing Jon into the frozen lake, and Gendry is sent back to the wall, send a raven to Daenerys to get help. You get your thoughts on this scene, Yarly?
Yeah, well, you know, absolutely. They actually had to do what they did, because we were speaking on this before, and something that I've always held in my heart was the bottom line is there's no way that man could win against this. You know, let's just be real. And I thought that it was kind of cool that they said that, or they showed us that any of the lieutenants have the ability to raise the dead. And of course, if you kill the lieutenant, that the dead that they, you know, raised in particular, kind of, you know, are going to die out. So I thought that that's something that was definitely needed to kind of to kind of even it out, because it's definitely a no-win situation. So I thought that was cool. And it actually puts more emphasis on why they needed more babies from Craster to just kind of increase their ranks to make sure that they at least have enough generals and lieutenants, so to speak, in their army, so that if one goes down, they can still continue the purge. But one thing that I'm wondering, y'all, even though if a lieutenant gets killed and the other ones fall dead, can't another one just raise them back up?
I think he disintegrates, doesn't he? The general.
No, I'm saying when they showed us that if you kill the general, the other whites around them just kind of, they're not animated anymore. But what would stop someone else from raising those guys back up? Not the lieutenant, but the whites.
I know I think it's probably just because two things. It's probably because it's just one time it happens, and two, it's a plot hole. Like if you kept raising it up, they don't really stand a chance. So there's that. Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know that they disintegrate completely. It sounded like they made bones collapsing sound effects when that happened, so they all just sort of dropped. So I don't know about that question. It's a really, really good question that I think only George R.R. Martin can answer because this is his universe. So we're gonna have to wait for the books on that kind of thing if we get a scenario that is similar to this scenario in the books. I did want to mention that go ahead and cue Forrest Gump Gendry memes. So I expect to see those all over the internet now.
So funny though. He was running right? That's so hilarious.
Well, he had those big boots on, and he's, it's hard to run in mountains in the snow. You're in Canada. How does that work, John?
It's tough. Andrew, is that it for you, Trin?
Yep.
Andrew, your thoughts on this scene?
There's my instant reaction Tuesday, because you guys, I started watching this 12:30 in the morning. So, instant reaction was, what the fuck? I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I saw him kill the white at Hardhome, but I didn't see him I didn't see any other dead whites fall. So this was a crazy thing for me to see. And the more and more I think about it, and I've actually said this on another podcast, there's this hive thing going on, right? And Barrick actually kind of confirms this later on. All of these generals, everyone knows, are always obviously Craster's sons. And I'm going to delve deeper into this after the show, in the after show. So please feel free to join me so that we can just go crazy with it. But this is a hive collective with the Night King being the alpha and all of his generals also having power that he's channeling through them. So basically, if he controls the collective, he's the alpha, he's the main person in the hive. He's just using them as an internet broadcaster. He basically uses their powers to warg other whites. So the more generals he has, the bigger his army becomes. So every time he loses a general, he loses a portion of his army. And it just may have happened that he was traveling with a white that had been worked by another person, or it could just be the fact that his working abilities only go to a certain parameter, like radius for that matter, because you notice when they're marching that they're all generally scattered throughout all of the dead. So I thought this was really revealing, and Barrick was right when he said, if you kill them, you kill them all. Basically, he turned every single one of them. And I thought, this is the moment that the White Walkers become vampires and werewolves.
That's awesome. Great thoughts. Same scene. We lost someone, guys. Thorstenir is dead. Barrick burns his body, and he suggests that Jon kill the Night King Tendor. Your thoughts, Yarli?
Yeah, Thoros had a death that was definitely preferable from the situation that they're going to be in a little bit in the future. And I thought that it was pretty cool. And once again, it showed that the Hound is really caught up in his PTSD. When Thoros started to burn him, he had to turn his back, but I think his way of paying respects for him was for him to drink some of that sweet rum that he was dissing. And I thought it was cool that Jon actually, pulled the rum away from Sandor's mouth and they used it to burn the body. So that was pretty cool. And you know what, Thoros, we didn't know you that well, but I kind of felt like you got kind of near and dear to my heart, man. You kept plugging along, and hopefully that's a lesson for everybody, man. You gotta get after it till the end.
Yeah, that was awesome. Better you than Giant Spade, in my opinion. Trin, your thoughts?
Oh, Thoros, my hero, my drunken warrior healer. I just can't. I think he's my spirit animal, and I miss him. Rip Thoros.
Right.
Andrea, your thoughts?
I know, it was actually really sad. This is a character that I don't know very well. Going back to the beginning when Gendry was like, "You tried to you sold me, and she was gonna kill me," and the Hound said, "Doesn't sound that bad." It was just so funny to watch Thoros like give Gendry the flask and then say "good lad" and walk away, and Gendry was left like, "What the fuck?" He was just such a happy guy when he was drunk, and I can totally see how he's your spirit animal, Trin, because he's just got his rum and he's riding his horse and he's just kind of leaning to one side, and yeah, he's awesome.
I don't remember that battle. What?
Exactly. They said yes. They said the day after though. Yeah, I kind of am going to miss him. But also, I think the biggest thing that I took from that is when the Hound told Beric, "Be careful. This is your last life." He doesn't have another priest to bring him back. So that Beric has to do something phenomenal with the rest of what he's got. I'm interested to see how that works out. But R.I.P. Thoros.
Yeah, that was sad. We go to Dragonstone. Daenerys receives a raven, and she leaves to go rescue Jon and Co. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is do nothing, says Tyrion. Daenerys, the reinforcements is coming, people. 3 dragons. Yardley, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, man. They're really lucky that Gendry ended up getting that raven to her, and I like the fact that she was kind of in a position where her draw to Jon Snow definitely is kind of superseding anything that she's thinking about as far as King's Landing at that particular moment. I thought that it was great. Her outfit was just fierce. I loved the costuming department. I mean, that coat looked really warm and very chic at the same time. So I thought that was awesome. But Tyrion's concerns were real. I mean, the fact of the matter is he's basically saying, look, if you put yourself in danger and you die, everyone that's come along to help you, everyone who's died to help you, this whole thing is going to come tumbling down if you die. So you could definitely see it in Tyrion's eyes that he was very concerned about this. But at the same time, I think he came to the realization that there was nothing that he was going to say that was going to keep Dany there. So, big ups to her to go save Puddin'.
Right. Yeah, she just needed an excuse to go, honestly. And the Raven was like the perfect excuse. She wanted to be able to go save them because she had said in a prior scene, "Oh, these men go do stupid things to prove each other their strength and worth and blah, blah, blah." And so when she got the Raven, she was like, "I'm out. Like, I didn't do anything and we lost everybody earlier. And now I'm using my dragons and I'm going to go stir shit." And Yardley's right. Those costumes were on point. The makeup, however, Andre and I talked about it this week, and the makeup was garbage in this episode. I'm really unhappy with that. But when we first saw in the last scene, I forgot to mention, not the Knights King, but one of the lieutenants, when you first see his face from far away, you're like,
looks
oh,
like
yeah,
a fish.
Yeah, no, you're like, well, at first from far away, he looks like a normal lieutenant. And then they show him and he like moves his face up and I'm like, dude, it looks like he's wearing a fucking mask. Like, at least they could have made him look a little more realistic, not like a Halloween mask. It was terrible. But I guess they spent all the money on the dragons. So cool. You know what? I'm happy about that.
Good. Andrea, your thoughts on this?
Daenerys's coat. Oh my God, her costume designer was amazing as you turned around and it had a completely different pattern. I was like, ooh, girl, slay. I really appreciate the fact that she was taking Olenna's advice again, and she was I can't understand what Chris is saying, but I like that she was taking Olenna's advice again, and she was, I'm a dragon. I'm going to be a dragon. I'm not listening to you. This is something that's important. So she went on and she took off, and she took all 3 of her dragons for the very first time, and it was absolutely stunning, like seeing all 3 of them together, like right in front of you. And I can understand completely why Tyrion, felt the way that he felt, because he's dedicated everything to her. I mean, she is everything. She's his salvation at this point. And sometimes the hardest thing is to do nothing, but this is one of those times where she actually had to go. And I'm glad that she did.
Awesome. Great thoughts. Back beyond the wall. Now, I love the Hound. This arguably is my funny scenes. He chucks a rock at a White Walker, busts open his face. And he goes, fucking, I don't want to say that word because it's offensive. That's hilarious. I love when he chucks a second rock and it hits the floor and he's like, oh, fuck. And the guy looks down. That's awesome. So the ice freezes over and the dead attack. This gave me a freaking heart attack. Tormund is saved by the hound. He almost dies. Danny and the dragons show up. Viserion dies by one freaking ice spear. Okay? The freaking scorpion couldn't kill a Drogon, but a fucking ice spear killed a dragon. I don't know how that's fucking crazy. That's how much power he has. Jon falls in the water. Dan leaves. Jon comes out of the water. And Benjen shows up to save the day. Stark reunion. Yay. Yarly, your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the things that we were supposed to definitely take out of this scene is, at least for me, I feel like Game of Thrones has lost its nerve with killing off people. I thought that it was really cheesy for Tormund not to die in that moment. And I just, I wanted the Hound to kind of make a comeback, but I didn't want that comeback to be at the expense of a situation where Tormund should have totally died. Now, maybe they're keeping that character alive because he is the face of the wildlings, and maybe later on the wildlings are going to come into play and they have to have that leader there. They haven't introduced us to any other wildlings that could fill that vacuum. So I'm thinking that's why they're keeping the character around. But at the same time, I don't know if that's necessarily something that they have to do. So I was kind of disappointed that he did not die, especially in that situation, because when they had him and his dragon glass axe was up against his neck, I totally thought he was going to get his throat cut and then pulled under the water, which would have been awesome. So that was one of my predictions that didn't happen in this episode. So I'm kind of janky about that as well. And Viserion, when the Night King uses those, the javelin, so to speak, I think we were supposed to get out of that is that the Night's King was prepared for this, which means that they are able to kind of check in on what Danny and those guys are doing as well. I don't think that it was a plot hole or stupid for them to have the chains, because this is something that they have prepared for. It wasn't just a fluke that they had two of those spears on the horse. It wasn't a fluke that they had the chains. And it was kind of something that Dan and Dave talked about in the after show, that they kind of knew that this situation was going to come. So that's something that's going to come into play. All this time, we've been thinking that Bran has the ability to have these flashes to see what's going on. Obviously, the Night's King kind of has some of that reconnaissance capabilities as well. So I thought that was awesome. And that actually takes the game to another level. Just the fact that the Night's King is basically played with him, because he could have easily have killed Drogon and then killed another dragon, but he didn't. And I think the funniest part of that whole situation was the panning shot from the cameraman when they were kind of going from character to character on the back of Drogon. And then you saw Jorah looking at Danny. I was really hoping for him saying, "Why the fuck are we still here?"
Good points. I mean, I think the bigger loss in Tormund and Giant's Bane is Viserion dying. I mean, I thought that's a huge loss, but I think the reason they're keeping him alive is to kind of, you want, if you're built, because they're a threat. They're like the threat. So you want as much warriors as you need for the final battle. So I think that's why he's still alive. I never thought that was, I thought that's like a magical spear. So I never thought that was a plot hole. I think that's just how powerful he really is. So I'm with you on all that. What amazing action sequences though with this whole thing, and the music was amazing. It's awesome. Trin, your thoughts?
I think it would have been a little too much for my heart to handle, with Thoros being killed, Viserion being killed, and Tormund. Like, if Tormund would have gone down, plus we saw Jon go under, so for a moment you're kind of like, wait a minute.
No.
Too much is happening.
Jorah should have died as well. See, that would have been my fantasy for the ultimate episode 9. Tormund dies, Viserion gets killed, the Night's King throws that second javelin, and it misses the dragon, but it impales Jorah and kills him. That way, Dany would have flown off thinking that Jorah died, thinking that Jon died, and lost one of her kids, and that would have made the end super impactful. But that was just me.
You are a cold person, Yardley. But I
think
I
the
see what you're
end
saying.
was impactful, though. I mean, we saw a fucking ice giant or ice dragon. So yeah. So I don't. I was. It was a shocker. I mean, I really was waiting for the end, the very very end, but it all of it was like edge of your seat, and I God, when I saw Tormund go down, oh my God, I was so sad. I was like, no, not Tormund. I love Tormund, my sweet ginger summer fire kissed child, whatever. I love him so much, and not after we just lost Thoros. No, no, I'm adamantly against that kind of thing. I know he's dying, and I've come to terms with that, but not today. That's not today.
Yeah, that's awesome. When John went in the water, I honestly thought he was gonna like break. I thought he was gonna ride a dragon. For some reason, I thought, what if he just gets on that dragon that's already underneath the water and he like somehow, I don't know, I was crazy, but anyway, he's like break out of the ice with the dragon.
I would have
come
quit
back
the
to
show
basically
if
back
that
to
happened.
life.
I would have
No,
rage
I was
quit
just
Game of
joking.
Thrones if that happened.
I honestly thought that Benjen will pull him out of the water or something, but it was awesome. Andrew, your thoughts on this epic scenes?
So many thoughts. The one thing that I took from this situation is that Daenerys's dragons aren't infallible. When Jon first arrived at Dragonstone, she said to him, "Did you see my 3 dragons when you were coming?" And he was like, "They're hard to miss." She felt like she was safe because she had 3 dragons, and the Lannisters shot a bolt at him, and yeah, it hit. But ultimately it didn't take him down. I do believe the difference between the bolt that was shot at him, though, and the spear that was shot at Viserion is that ice spears, as well as their swords, are as sharp as Valyrian steel, if not sharper, whereas regular steel isn't going to do the damage that an ice spear or a Valyrian steel anything would do. Also, there's magic in them. They don't kill you right away, but they can kill you. And there's magic in them still. So I think that it's important that we remember that Valyrian steel and the ice spears are pretty much the same. I also want to say shout out to the Night King for his Olympic gold medal. He was phenomenal with the javelin. I also really thought it was awesome how Jon went fucking nuts when he saw Viserion die. It was like it absolutely touched him, like he was experiencing a loss.
Targaryen blood.
That was crazy to me. I actually really was happy that Tormund didn't die. I thought that he was a goner, and of course anything's possible. We still have next episode, the cliffhanger episode, to go through. But I am glad that Tormund didn't die, because when Jorah almost fell from Drogon's back, it was Tormund who saved him, which was like a moment of healing between House Mormont and the Wildlings. So I thought that was important because, again, they all have to work together if they're going to make it through the long night. And
wasn't it the Hound? Wasn't it? I thought it was the Hound that grabbed Jorah.
It was Tormund that grabbed Jorah, and it was the Hound that saved Tormund. But what was the other thing I was going to say? Drogon damn sure learned how to juke people. I mean, he was like, I got hit once, y'all ain't hitting me again. He zigged
and zagged.
He zigged and zagged. He was like, I got this, bro. When Jon fell into the water, I thought I was just like, here we go again. And I just thought it was really convenient how Longclaw was just lying there next to the broken ice. And for a moment, you see the eyes like go white, almost like it was warged. And then you see Jon come out of the water and grab the sword. And I thought for a second that the sword may have a connection to Ghost, because Ghost was sent by Bloodraven, and Bloodraven also left, in my opinion, Longclaw at the wall, because I don't think that Jorah actually confirmed that was his house's sword. That's just me, my personal opinion. I just think he said he didn't deserve it, and his father gave it to him for a reason. So I'm of my own mind of that, but the overall scene was crazy. There was some weird pattern on the ice when they flew away. I'm gonna go and dissect that some more now that I can see it in HD, like real HD. I did. I cried my eyes out, and I just kept thinking to myself, why isn't the dragons like shooting fire on the Night King and his arm and his lieutenants? It doesn't make any sense to me. And then I saw the Night King walk through that fire, and I was thinking to myself, so is the Night King immune to dragon fire too? So I'm interested to find out how that works out, because if he's allergic, if he's immune to dragon fire too, is he immune to Valyrian steel? Is he immune to dragon glass? Like, is he different than his lieutenants? So I had a lot of questions about that. And then seeing Daenerys's face, like, I was more wondering if she was sad that Jon had fell in the ice and didn't get back out, or if she was sadder about Viserion. I was conflicted on which one was the most important to her. So it was a sad moment. It was a really sad moment.
Yeah. Love the effects though when Viserion gets hit. You see like a little bit of an explosion, like a little bit of fire explosion, and then you see like blood is just like in the air. So that's crazy. We go to the wall now. Tormund and Beric and Dany wait on Jon and Drogon. Goes to Jon arrives, and Jon was announced by the horn. Quick thoughts on this one, Yarly.
I thought that it was cool, and I think that this scene is probably going to show that there isn't going to be a Clegane Bowl. When the Hound puts the White into the boat that's going to get ready to take it back to King's Landing, he definitely talks about basically, I hope I don't ever see you again, and these types of things. I don't think that the Hound is going to be present when they go there.
He's on the boat, isn't he?
Well, he plopped the White into the boat and pretty much, was like, hey, I'm over this. I'm doing my own thing. It was a mention. I think he said something along the lines of, I'll see you later. And the Hound was like, I hope not. But I don't think that he's going. So I think that Clegane Bowl is probably going down the drain.
Trin, your thoughts?
I'm going to say that I totally disagree with Yardley, only because when I think that Clegane is going to take the White down, and the reason I think that is because we saw one of the promo pictures way before the season started, maybe not way before, but a couple of weeks before, and there was one shot that we saw a figure with like a light behind him, and we couldn't quite make out the face of that person, and we were debating, is that Sandor? Is that Bronn? Who is that person? And we deduced that it was down south because we saw a Lannister guard, like somebody in Lannister armor and sort of like way in the background. And I went back and looked at that this week, and I swear that's going to be Sandor. It looked a lot like Sandor, like his the way he stands, I don't know, disposition, mannerisms, whatever. I think that might be Sandor, and I think we might see him in King's Landing, which makes there a huge possibility for a Clegane Bowl. But I do think that Sandor's going down there and that Beric isn't. I think it'll be reversed.
Andrea, your thoughts?
I agree with you, Sharon. I think the Beric is staying at the wall. I mean, he made it abundantly clear that he thinks that this is his purpose. Why leave it to just go and see a king? He's not actually working for the kings and queens of Westeros. He doesn't care about the Iron Chair. He cares about, defeating the Night King. So I do believe that Beric is staying. And as far as I was under the impression, it looked like the Hound actually had possession of the White. And so basically he was in charge of making sure that it got to where it needed to be, as well as Jorah and Daenerys and all of them. But I think that the Hound is going to follow it through, for sure. And it'll be interesting. I think that Trin could be right. I did say for a while that I thought it was Bronn. I feel like the belts match a lot, and the pants were a little too light for the Hound. But hey, there was a huge bright light, so I could be completely wrong. And I would say that is like a 75% chance that it is the Hound, though I don't know if he's actually fighting somebody or there's something else going on. That's completely up to the viewer or anybody who's seen that trailer that was released. But
plus he's got to see Brienne again.
Oh my God, that's going to be so interesting. But we'll talk about that when and if it happens, because
right?
I actually do want that. I do wonder if the Hound and Beric are ever going to see each other again. Was that foreshadowing, or was it, the Hound saying, God, I hope not, as in, no, you're actually not going to see me ever again. So I'm interested to see how that works out.
Awesome. Winterfell. Sansa finds Arya's masks. Arya tells Sansa the truth. Arya plays a lying game with Sansa. Yarly, quick thoughts on this?
I thought that it was a great scene, very intense. It actually made you think, like, what the hell is Arya going to do in this situation? So I thought the scene played out well. I thought the acting was great. I bought the emotion that was in the scenes. And of course, seeing it in HD, you see some eyes welling up a little bit better than you saw if you actually managed to watch the leak episode. But I thought the scene was great, and it actually for me as a viewer. So I'm actually even more excited next week to see how this plays out.
Awesome. Sharing your thoughts.
Yes, you could see the eyes welling up. God, Sansa's such a fantastic actress. Sansa is a great actress, and Sophie Turner's a great actress. Like both the character and the actress are just fantastic because she was not playing Arya. I stick to that so firmly. And I don't know what kind of eyes were in that room other than the two pairs that we saw, but somebody was listening or watching somehow, somewhere. And so Sansa was putting on that show. What I also liked about this scene was they brought up that whole lying game, or the game of faces, where Arya's playing the game of faces. I don't know if she's been teaching Sansa this or if Sansa's just learned this from life experience, but I think Sansa could play that game pretty damn well if she wanted to.
Good. Great thoughts. Andrea, your thoughts?
I just wanted to go back really fast because I didn't know we were talking about the completion of the wall with Daenerys waiting for Jon and all that. I thought it was really touching that Drogon was actually crying, I think for Viserion, but also he was looking for Jon. And that Daenerys was actually watching, waiting for Jon, and that when he finally appeared, he was on the back of his horse and he hadn't fallen off. And Daenerys has Dothraki heritage at this point, and a Khal isn't a Khal if he cannot ride. And Jon, even though he was basically on death's door, he was still on his horse, and it was like a sign of strength for him. And then also when she saw him, once they peeled all of his layers of fur off, he hid the moon over his heart. It was symbolic, and I'll talk about that later as well. But I just really thought overall that there was something in the fact that Drogon was looking for Jon too. He was important to Drogon, and that was really important. Now the thing with Sansa and Arya, really quick, is I totally believe somebody was listening in on that too. Arya didn't close the door all the way when she came in, and you could see that. Neither did Sansa, actually. You could see that because the door bounced back. And there's obviously a latch because they can lock it. So there was definitely somebody listening, and I'm sure that they spoke loud enough for it. And Arya, it's really interesting. Everyone's reaction in my house was, Arya is crazy. And I'm like, she's not being crazy at all. Sansa asked a question. Arya gave her an honest answer. She just did it with a lack of emotion. And that really, even tone that she used with Sansa was enough to give anybody chills. But she was honest with her. And I was actually really excited because up until that very moment, we didn't know that the faces were like actual like skin faces. Like obviously they were in the Hall of Faces, but they always looked like silk when they were pulled off until Arya pulled off Walder Frey's face. So seeing those in her bag, it was interesting. And the fact that Sansa didn't want to play the lying game to me was pretty telling as well, because Arya already knew the truth. She doesn't really want Jon to be the king in the North. But I still don't think that there's this serious animosity where Sansa needs to worry about, the safety, her life. And I also thought it was interesting that she said, I have 100 guards that are sworn to me, that are loyal to me or something like that, will kill for me. And Arya goes, well, they're not in here now. I think that we're going to see this come full circle, hopefully by the next episode. And I called Littlefinger's death last year, so I'm really hoping that I'm right about this because I'm just really sick of that bitch. And, whatever game Arya and Sansa are playing, they're playing it well.
Good points. Yeah, Littlefinger's dying. It's happening. The Love Boat. Dany sits behind Jon when he rests. Jon apologizes for Viserion. Dany talks to him about she will never have children other than her dragons, so she's going to fight with him. And Jon calls Dany. No one's ever called. Who's the last person to call Daenerys Dany? And then Jon calls Dany his queen. So Jon is bending the knee. Danny and John are falling in love with each other. It's already happened. They're holding hands. There's emotions in the air. The love boat is in the air. It's awesome. Yarly, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's also something it kind of showed compromise. In the order, it showed that Danny was totally on John's side by saying that she is going to help him. So technically, he didn't have to bend the knee. But by John saying that he was going to bend the knee, that was him submitting, saying, hey, thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm going to make a sacrifice just like you are by helping the greater good. I thought that was really awesome, really intimate scene. I definitely liked seeing her reaction when she saw all of the scars that John has acquired to get to where he is now. So it showed that she really respected his game on that front. And I thought that the discussion about the dragons being her children, which to me essentially is what drove her to say, hey, you know what? We've really got to do something about it. She got her seeing is believing moment, and it really hit close to home. And one last thing that I noticed to kind of wrap this thing up were the shots of the dragons as far as scale is concerned, as compared to the wall. A popular fan theory is that a dragon is going to eventually bring down the wall. But when you look at that scale, it's kind of hard for me to believe that one or two dragons would do any damage to that thing. So we'll see how that popular theory plays out. But it just kind of blew my mind that those dragons are so small compared to the wall. It's just kind of unbelievable for me that they could bring it down.
Great thoughts. John bending the knee is kind of like, this goes back to Tormund's conversation he had beyond the wall when he talked about Mance Rayder and how prideful he was and how much people died. So there's that. So Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah, he also said, you've been hanging out with the free folk too long. You don't like bending your knee anymore or whatever. You're not a kneeler anymore. So, it was cute. John wakes up and he sees Danny like not quite crying, but the expression on her face is one of complete vulnerability. And he hasn't seen her this vulnerable in ever, because she's always from the moment she stepped foot in Westeros on Dragonstone, she's had that sort of queen regal demeanor, like, I am the queen and I've come to conquer and I've come to take my throne. And she's been acting that way. And everybody this season's been giving her a bunch of shit and hating on Danny, like, oh, why is she acting all like this? Because she's been pretty humble in the past and caring and kind and tender and all of those things. But she hasn't really shown a lot of that this season. In that scene, she was completely vulnerable. She had just lost a child. And John sees that. And the first thing he says is, I'm so sorry. Because he knew what happened to her and that loss. And so I thought that was just excellent. They just did an excellent job with that. And you see that intimate bond just deepening and deepening between the two of them. And it was darling.
That's awesome. Andrea, I know you and I both agree. We are on this Daenerys John hooking up shit. Your thoughts on this scene?
I think it was really important. John waking up and seeing Daenerys sit next to him, and like Trin said, she was trying to keep it together. But John was genuinely, he was genuinely feeling grief for her loss of Viserion, because I think he felt it too. But I said earlier that I would touch back on this before. The first thing that she basically said to John is that her dragons are her children, and they're the only children that she will ever have. And me and Gisela have always been of the opinion that Viserion is actually Rhaego come again. And I feel like her losing Viserion is basically the death that's going to pay for the life that's going to come from John and Daenerys being together. So I think that, again, like, I was saying before, everything is happening for a reason right now. Ned going to King's Landing and dying, things like that, even though they suck, they're all there for a reason. And it was important, too, because Daenerys at this point realized, finally, that the threat was real and it's bigger than everything else that's going on. And here we are. She's telling John that she can't have any kids. She recognizes him as a fighter. You know, she saw him out there fighting for her and fighting for everyone else. And she, you know, they just had that talk about succession. And she says to John, I can never have kids. Do you understand that? So she was expressing something important to her as a confession, as well as a proposal, in my opinion. And John is the knower of nothing. So he says, you know, Danny, thank you. And then she goes, not the company you want to keep. And then he was like, how about my queen? So he bent the knee in word, and he didn't even really have to. I think that she was choosing John in that moment to be her successor. Who better to take care of the Seven Kingdoms than the person who's been fighting with them for years, fighting for them for years. So, I mean, there was really no other choice for her in that moment. And you can see that the feelings are clearly there. The moment with Drogon, the episode before, and then, you know, his reaction after that. Who better to, you know, leave everything that she's worked so hard for to, you know what I mean? Or at least join with. And I think that she finally realizes that there's a new man, a real man who's worthy of her. So John is the knower of nothing, and I think he'll get it come. He'll get a better idea soon to come.
Yes, he will get it.
He
That's
will
awesome.
get that.
It's gonna happen, people. The wolf and the dragon will lay together.
Did
It's
anybody
awesome.
else notice a glitch in that scene? Because both times I watched it, I don't know if anybody, and if you guys want to go back and watch it, that's cool. But in that scene, it looked like an editing glitch, and maybe it's just my editing eyes. But I saw, like, when he says Danny to her, it looked like there was like a glitch, and she immediately almost changed, like snapped out of the sad mode into, oh, nobody ever said that. But it was like very clearly an editing glitch. I don't know if that's just me, if I just saw that, but if you guys
What was the glitch again?
it looked like an edit, like a splicing glitch in the scene, and it looked like when they had the camera at the door looking at Danny and John on the at the bed.
I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, definitely look at that.
Back in the north, Viserion is first of all, where the freak did they get giant chains?
Where the fuck did they get so many chains?
Where did they get the big giant chains? Sorry for cutting you off. Viserion has turned to a white dragon. Shit just got real, people. Shit just got real. He's got a fucking dragon. I don't know if this dragon could breathe fire because he's a white. Okay, but this is crazy. Yarly, your thoughts on this?
I touched on this earlier. This is something that they were carrying around because they were prepared for this moment, and it's awesome. It's an awesome moment. I mean, I think that we could all see that coming after what happened in the earlier episode. But I think that it's great that they've got an opportunity to get new wheels, so to speak, and it's going to make the next action sequence even more awesome, you know, in my opinion. So I thought that was great, and we discussed this pretty much throughout the season, that as this thing goes along, all things are going to end up kind of equaling out. So we're starting to see there might be some equaling out as far as, you know, Bran being able to see visions. Me personally, I think that the Night's King is doing the same. That's why he was prepared. We also see that the tide is turning for, you know, both sides having a dragon. We'll see what happens to which one was Rhaegal. If you watch this, you actually see Rhaegal kind of just fly the fuck out of there after his brother.
Yeah.
He was like, fuck this shit. Like, he got the hell on. You know what I mean? So I wonder if that dragon's going to end up coming back or just beating it. Because I know in the books, in the past, there were dragons that I think that Aegon had that flew off and never came back after the dance with dragons or something like that. So we'll see how that pans out. But hey, go ahead, Night's King. Do your thing, man.
That's crazy. I wouldn't even say equals out. I think the Night's King has way more of an advantage over Westeros right now. So I don't even think it's equal. I think Night's King is as a total advantage. So there's that. Trin, your thoughts?
Yeah. All these theories about there's got to be 3 heads to the dragon, and everybody always trying to figure out who's going to be that third person to ride the dragon. Well, I think the person who wakes the dragon rides the dragon, and Danny can ride or could have rode all three of them if she wanted to. And now it seems like the Night King woke the dragon. So, I mean, was he a Targaryen? I don't think he was Targaryen, but he's going to be riding a new dragon.
Good. Yeah, great thoughts. Andrea.
I actually do think that there is a blood tie to House Targaryen or the Valyrians or even the people of the First Empire in general because of his immunity to walk through fire. That's unexplained. If he's just like the others or, he created them, then why isn't he susceptible to fire? That was interesting to me for certain. At Yardley, it was Silverwing, Cannibal, and Sheep Stealer who all ended up leaving around the time of the dance or after the dance. They all left Dragonstone to not return. So that actually is true. Rhaegal, he dipped. I was more interested in where the fuck those chains came from. They were ready to go. It was like the Night King knew that Viserion or somebody was going to be there, but I do think those spears were present at Hardhome. I could be wrong. But I was sad to see Viserion be brought back. And I was confused too, because when those dead people fell into the water, they were basically just done. The Night King didn't have any say over, what happened to them after the fact. But somehow they got down there to wrap chains around Viserion, which I was confused about. How did they get down there? But overall, I mean, I think I expected this, and I definitely think that Viserion's going to play a huge, huge part in the finale, only because they always try to tie the two in. Something is going to happen, and it's going to be this crazy finale. And because this is, the second to the last season, they have to give us something to freak us out until they decide to either release it next year or in 2019. I knew this was going to happen. I just want to clarify for everyone. It's not an ice dragon. It's a white dragon. He's dead. He's not a natural, what's the word that I'm looking for? He's not a natural occurrence of nature. Like, he's not made of ice. He's not going, I don't believe he's going to breathe ice. I think that he's just a white dragon in general. The Night King warged him. So, I'm interested to see where this goes. I still am hoping that Bran is able to turn the tide in this battle through Viserion, because he does have similar powers to the Night King. So I'm just going to keep my mouth closed. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, and I'm going to pray that this works out somehow, some way, because Bran's only purpose can't be telling Jon who his parents are.
Great thoughts. Before we get to sword ratings, just remember, guys, Wednesday is our full review. So tune in to Wednesday. We got a full review, and we'll go even more deeper. And Andrea will be on afterward to do her live show, right, Andrea?
Yeah, really quick. I do have Goats, his breakdown. If that's okay, if I read it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I won't say a lot for tonight's episode of the show. I'll wait till Wednesday night. But who paid the iron price for it? You all know General Goat did. Trish, you get your ice dragon now. The Night's King is a bad motherfucker who would eat every fucking chicken in this room. Let's see here. The fight with the whites was great. The dragons were great. Jon, don't blow your load over them. LOL. The story with Arya, Sansa, and Littlefinger I can't stand Arya. Can't be that stupid. Something else must be going on. I guess we'll find out next week. Guys, I can't wait to hear what you all have to say about tonight's fucking great episode. Goat will be back with his full feedback come Wednesday's show. Love you all. Keep up the great work.
Love you too, Goat. Before we get to the closing thoughts, don't forget to check out our Facebook at BeyondYourThrone.com and the group Beyond Your Throne. I can't remember the other one. It's a long thing. Also, our website.
I'll do it at the end.
We'll still do it again. Don't forget, website BeyondYourThrone.com. Please give us a rating on iTunes. Also, if you wanna support us, please use one of our links and help keep the podcast running. And don't forget, we have a Patreon, so do that. Let's do our sword ratings and our closing thoughts and where we can find you. Yardley.
You can follow me on Twitter at militant_marker, and my sword rating is 4.5. I can't let it slide that they bailed out Tormund and Jorah. I'm never going to get away from that because I'm kind of on that thing with things closing out. We got to start thinning the herd, but we never know what's going to happen next week. But it was a great episode. I enjoyed it from start to finish, and let's see how this thing closes out next week.
Trin, your sword ratings, where can find you, your favorite scene.
You guys can follow me on social medias like Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of stuff at Dovahkiin Trin. And I'm going to give this a 4.5. Even after I watched it twice, I loved so much dialogue. This had great dialogue. It had great action. Danny and John are getting there. They're getting close. So yeah, well, it's a really good 4.5 and fantastic episode. Not disappointed at all.
Awesome. Andreas, sword ratings, where they can find your social media, favorite scene.
As many times as I've watched this episode, I'm still crying when I watch it, which means that it was really strong for me. I give this episode amazing for me, watching all the dialogue. And I did think that it was a little odd that they didn't kill any main characters off, because I don't really consider Thoros a main character, but I will say that I think that they were saving it for the big shocker Viserion. So I think that makes up for the fact that they didn't kill off Jorah. I saw a symbol on his armor that made him essential to the rest of this story. So I don't think that Jorah is going anywhere, but 5 full stars for me. I mean, swords for me. It was a phenomenal episode, and I'm just going to continue to watch it and rewatch it over and over again, because I'm sure there's tons that can be learned from it. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at A_Richards637. You can also find me here on Facebook on Behind the Iron Throne, or you can go to join Club Beat It. The link is pinned to the top of the page. We have a lot of fun discussions in there, and you get a lot of really good information. So that's always a great place to join. Also, you'll find my after show there. And don't forget to stop by our website, behindtheironthrone.com. I have been putting up new articles. You get a little bit of information about us, and there is the link for our Patreon on the page as well. And it was great being here. I love talking with you guys. Being here every Sunday, every Wednesday, it's phenomenal. And this fucking show, man, amazing.
Yes, and I will give it, of course, 5 stars out of 5. R.I.P. Thorsimir, R.I.P. Viserion. That was sad. You can find me at John Fury, Twitter, John Fury 316, Facebook, Instagram, John 50, and everywhere else on social media. Well, that's it, guys. That's our show for tonight. I mean, no Chris. That sucks, but I mean, I tried my best as being a host.
Chris is here. He's just
Chris
doing production right now.
Good.
He's
Guys,
here. He's just not on audio.
Forget, right after this show, Andrea is going to do a live session, so go over there, check it out. She's gonna answer all your crazy questions. She knows so much shit, so just let her do her shit. And don't forget, I just got a Raven, so I'm not sure if we're gonna have a Wednesday show. It's up to Chris, but if we are gonna have a Wednesday show, it's gonna be freaking crazy, guys. We have 1 episode left in the season. Okay, oh my god, and only 6 left after that. It's crazy. So guys, it was a great show, everyone. So
John, you did a fantastic job.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good MCing,
And don't forget, guys, stay with us on social media. We're gonna go live for a few more minutes so you can answer your questions. And don't forget, give us a rating on iTunes. Have a good night, everyone. R.I.P. Viserion.
Hashtag beat it. Run,
Hashtag
Gendry, run.
Run, people. Okay.
Run, Gendry, run.